Untamed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Platform.
iOS, it's only sport. Martin, Devlin, Lachlan, War. That's the name of the show, the program, the podcast. 1 till 4 live on the platform every weekday. And now the highlights version you're about to hear, including special guest Tim Horan, double World Cup winner for the Wallabies, as we look forward to the Bledisloe Cup coming up on Saturday. That's kind of flown a little bit under the radar, hasn't it? Football Ferns last night, very disappointing result and performance. But hey, full credit to the Philippines, who achieved their first ever World Cup win at a women's tournament and are probably feeling a little bit like we were against Norway just days ago. Brendan Telfer, the doyen, 50 years sporting experience in the business. These are the special guests you're about to hear from. But first, as always, I say tablets in hand and gather my flock. It's time for a sermon. We lost last night, but let's still go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
Well, that was a bummer. That was a bummer. We weren't at the races, as they say. Football Ferns coming a cropper last night versus the Philippines, who totally deserved their win, taking nothing away from the World Cup debutants, who are going to be celebrating today like we were after beating Norway. History made in Wellington with their first ever World Cup win, just as we achieved ours 5 days previous at Eden Park. No lack of desire or effort or will from the Ferns last night, but skill-wise, yeah, we were lacking. You got to say it. You got to tell the truth. We were lacking, just not as sharp as we were versus the Norwegians. Poor first touch from most of the players, passing inaccurate, inability to break the press that they were playing, refusal to change it up by going wide or using the full width of the pitch, substitutions, especially Annalise Longo for Paige Riley, I thought was very confusing. Longo hadn't played in 10 months and it showed. Paige Riley, the one player on the pitch last night who had the ability, I thought, and the pace to beat her marker, and I would have left her out of there. We had our chances. We had good chances. The offside disallowed goal sucked, and I hate that rule. The tiniest sliver of a shirt sleeve putting Hannah Wilkinson offside. But them's the rules. And you're not just offside or a little bit offside. You're either onside or you are offside. And so, yes, she was offside. That's the rule. Goal disallowed, didn't count. We hit the post, and their keeper pulled off a worldy save with a few minutes left. Coulda, shoulda, maybe deserved the draw, which would have pretty much put us through. But alas, no. And this is football. And this is exactly what football does to you. It kicks you in the goolies, or the ovaries. Probably more appropriate. Time and time again, it breaks your bloody heart. So a reboot needed before Switzerland on Sunday. Both matches in the group kick off simultaneously. Flush the dunny and move on. As Steve Hansen might have once said, we play a Swiss team who've yet to concede a goal. So they're going to be very hard to break down, and we're going to need to be at our very best, back to doing what we did so well against Norway. That's competing for the ball, win the ball, maintain possession, but use the wide areas, create some space, do a lot more with the ball than we did last night. The euphoria from the Norway win gone, the balloon pricked last night really bites. But it is not over. No, it is not over. However, to get a result versus the Swiss and qualify, we are going to have to play one hell of a lot better.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The Platform.
Lachlan. News headlines of a sporting nature, please.
Yes.
Bring it. Lots of it.
Well, there is a bit. I mean, it's been a little bit quiet these last few days on the news front. There's not a lot happening apart from the Women's World Cup and the All Blacks at the moment, which is still a fair bit, I guess. But matches yesterday, of course, New Zealand losing to the Philippines 1-0, Switzerland and Norway drawing 0-0. Those both followed Colombia beating South Korea 2-0. How does it make our group look? Switzerland on top on 4 points. We're second on 3 ahead of the Philippines thanks to goals diff. Norway last. We have Switzerland in our last game. Philippines have Norway. And I think in order for us to still qualify, we need either a draw, or if we lose, we can only lose 1-0. Well, no. There's a lot of little sort of intricate details around
Permutations,
how we can qualify.
combinations. Just don't lose. Don't lose for a
Just
start.
worry about the task at hand and, just draw, and then you should get through. Anyway, quite an extraordinary occurrence involving Norway star forward Caroline Graham Hansen, who lashed out in an interview with Norwegian TV after she started on the bench in her side's underwhelming 0-0 draw
No
with
relation to
Switzerland.
Sir Steve?
See, if you call my jokes rubbish, can I call yours rubbish as well?
All right, okay.
Man, that was awful.
All right.
This is what she said to Norwegian TV. It's tough. I don't know what I can say. There's not much I can say. I feel like I'm standing here with my hands tied. Well, she did say some things. I feel I have been stepped on for a whole year. Everyone says all the time that we have to stand together as a team and as a nation, but I feel I've been on the receiving end. Quite an incredible thing. I don't think many New Zealand athletes you'd see them saying something like that after a match. Rugby League news, Warriors centre Adam Pompey has extended his stay with the Auckland-based NRL club, committing for a further 2 years till the end of the 2025 NRL season. Bronny James, the son of NBA superstar LeBron James, has been hospitalised after going into cardiac arrest while participating in a practice at the University of Southern California. A spokesperson from the family said medical staff treated the 18-year-old on site and he was transported to a hospital where he was in a stable condition. That's quite concerning. Bronny James is, I think, expected to be drafted into the NBA next year. I think that's the earliest he can enter the draft after he completes a year of college. Tottenham Hotspur owner Joe Lewis has been charged with orchestrating a brazen insider trader scheme. This, according to an American attorney. The attorney says that Joe Lewis has been indicted and will face justice in the Southern District of New York. That's not good for Tottenham Hotspur. And just finally, sort of circling back to some NBA-related news, Boston Celtics wing Jaylen Brown has agreed to sign the richest deal in NBA history, a 5-year, $304 million Supermax extension. That's $304 American million. He became eligible for a Supermax after earning All-NBA second-team honours during the last NBA season. And quite surprising, because it's a player who I don't actually think is worthy of the richest deal in NBA history. He is a good player, he's not the best. That's what's making news, madam.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
Football Ferns, bugger, just didn't play well enough to beat the Philippines. Barbara Cox and Michele Cox, mum, daughter, both played for the Football Ferns. Barbara, in fact, our very first ever Football Fern. Expert post-match analysis coming. Barbara, so the way that we set up and the way that we were going about the game, looking at it now, and it's easier in hindsight, but what would you have changed?
I think I would have asked the players to start doing a little bit more individual skill through the middle. And, there's two things, possibly going down the flanks, which they did do, but then driving the ball in as hard as possible and looking for a rebound amongst all the players, because that can often result in a goal. And the other way is actually taking on players and making little 1-2 passes, just anything to get in amongst the players. There was very little space, and I think that's why the players seemed to get quite frustrated, and they sort of played around the edge as well, but in that final pass to either shoot at goal or play in, that they just couldn't get past the opposing players.
Yeah, very perceptive. I thought exactly the same watching it. What did you think, Michelle, as well? I thought we huffed and puffed, but yeah, it was that kind of that clinicalness, if that's such a word you need, we didn't have.
Yeah.
I might have actually given Millie Clegg a run last night just to provide something different. So that would have been one thing I would have tried, because we were down right and it didn't seem to be working what we were doing. So, yeah, so that's what I would have added.
Annalie Longo coming on for Paige Riley. I thought that was also a substitution mistake, Barbara, because I just thought that Paige Riley is what you're talking about, one of those rare players who can beat a player, who can create her own space.
Yeah, I must admit I was a little bit surprised about that, because she combines really well with Malia Steinmetz, I think that's her name.
Yep.
On the other hand, Annalie does add that composure of experience. So possibly a toss-up. I just thought then we just needed that more composure on that, and perhaps a little bit better possession keeping. Like, I don't know what the pitch was like, but a lot of the balls didn't seem to stick to the players' feet, and that's that's why I say about that, holding the ball the first time it comes and playing off these little 1-2s, even taking on players. Because, when you've got so many defenders around you, it's so easy, as I said, to get tripped up. And, sometimes that's the only way that you can get close to scoring.
Barbara and Michele Cox are with us. Both played for the Football Ferns. Barbara, in fact, our first ever Football Fern. Michele, you've played in many games like this where it's just not going well. You need a change-up. Did you see that we had a plan B last night or not?
Listen, I think Yitka, she's probably got the best mentor in the whole world, so they would have had something, but it's just whether it can be executed on the night, right? Mm-hmm. So I just think, as I said before, they got rattled, and the more frustrated you get, the more difficult it is. So, so I just hope for Switzerland that they're going to be really tough. They're 20, but they should also probably be ranked higher, that we go out like we did with Norway.
It's one of the things I was quite surprised with. Katie Bowen said afterwards immediately, Barbara, that they wanted it more. And I don't know whether that's just in the heat of after the game and whether or not, she'd actually thought about that a lot. But that's a bit worrying because I thought against Norway we wanted it more. And so I'd be very surprised, that the desire wasn't there because that's the very first thing that I would have expected.
Yeah, no, I was actually in Sydney for the Norway game, and so I watched it on TV. And the difference was just remarkable. And I don't think it's a case of wanting it more. I think the players were a little bit bamboozled about trying to get through so many defenders.
Yeah.
So, for example, we were still keeping 4 our defenders at the back, and there was still only, say, 1, 2 or possibly 3 attackers. And there were times when the midfield players were actually probably a good 15 metres, maybe 20 metres off the first line of defence. And I still think, and this is the problem about playing teams like that they were quite fast, the Philippines, and so you're always concerned that, one long ball or one mistake can actually lead to a goal. So I think not that they didn't want it. I think it was more a case of being a little bit cautious and not being able to throw everything and just push forward like they did in the last 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, Michele, I thought that save at the end from their keeper, who doesn't look at all Filipino to me. I don't know what I'm saying there, but
there were quite a few of those.
There were a number of pale faces in that team I saw, but that save from the keeper, that was world class. Look, the volley was perfect. It was down, it was into the ground, it was to the corner, the body was opened up, and she just flicked her hand at it. Wow, that was an amazing save.
No, it wasn't amazing.
And you know what, Marty?
See, Mum's going to talk over you here again, Michele. This is what happens. This has been your whole life.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Well, I will just finish then. But honestly, look, when you play football and it's a tight game, there's just games where nothing goes right for you. And you sometimes just have to accept that and move on.
And to be fair, Marty, oh gosh, I got a word in.
Keep going.
No, like when we played the US and beat them in 87, we defended the whole game. It was sort of like exactly the same as this one, but we got that breakaway and scored. And so, we've had our times where it's gone our way as well.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. All right, Lachlan, we got more time to play. What is more chance of happening?
Next!
Yeah, I know we played it before.
We need to talk.
And we'll do it again.
We need to talk.
Next! What is more chance of happening? The Football Ferns make it out of the group into the knockout phase of the Women's World Cup.
No.
Or the Prime Minister and other slavering politicians turn up to the dressing room if they lose and get knocked out. Because this, for me, is why I hate seeing those PR photo opportunity things where after the Norway game, the past Prime Minister, the present Prime Minister, the Sports Minister, all of them all over the Football Ferns in that dressing room. Where were you last night when they need you more? Where were you then? Not a single one showing up last night.
I would say the first of those is more likely that the Football Ferns qualify. And can I say, in the locker room with them, after the wonder win over Norway, you had Chris Hipkins looking like a real dad in the, gearing up the team. Grant Robertson, who looks out of place. And with all due respect, Jacinda Ardern was there.
Yeah,
you're not the Prime Minister anymore.
Absolute
you're not a politician.
Just loves it. Can't help it.
Like, she actually doesn't work in politics in this country anymore.
Because you didn't want to be involved in all of this stuff, but you can't stay away.
You're taking advantage of all the luxuries of being a politician in this country. Sorry, Dame just.
I don't like it. I didn't like it when John Key did it in the three-way handshake. Stay away from
he was the Prime Minister when that happened.
I don't like it when either of them do it. What is more chance happening? The Football Ferns make it out of the group stage of the World Cup, or the RLPA and the NRL settle this 20-month-old dispute? Settle it before the weekend before we play Switzerland. No chance, right? No. Settle it before the Women's World Cup final.
I could see them sorting it out, though, because if the players are now coming out and saying, "Oh, we don't know what we're actually, striking for," that's what I'm looking for.
Exactly.
Then if you're the RFPA and you've got some brain, some form of brain at least, or intelligence, you'd kind of go, okay.
Well, you'd also got to be in touch with your members. If your members don't even know what the hell they're going on strike for,
maybe you should just go, wave the white flag and do your deal.
I think this guy, Clint Newton, you're the most hated man in rugby league, mate. You're the most hated man in rugby league, mate. Okay, the fans, we all hate you.
I hate him. I've interviewed him before. He's a nice bloke.
Is he?
Yeah, I like.
Well, be a nice bloke and get the deal done then, son.
Yeah, he's just done something
What
wrong.
is more chance happening, Lachlan? The Football Ferns may go down to the group stage, or Carolyn Graham Hansen gets selected.
Can I just quickly say, during the opening match, the commentators were referring to her as Graham Hansen.
Graham Hansen, yeah.
So I was like, maybe a flatmate I watched the game going, there's a chick called Graham? What?
Well, I didn't know whether you know, but apparently there's a transgender player playing for Canada. So perhaps that's,
is there? Is there actually?
First I heard. I saw it on Twitter before, and Twitter's always right. Twitter never lies.
That's just some sort of rumour because one of the players looks manly.
Carolyn Graham Hansen gets selected to start for Norway against the Philippines after giving the coach a spray.
The Football Ferns to make it the group.
It's not going to happen. Next! Finally, what is more chance of happening, Lachlan? The Football Ferns make it out of the group stage, or the Silver Ferns...
There is a Canadian player, Quinn.
Yeah. Maz? No, he's a surfer.
No, it's just Quinn. It's just Quinn.
Okay.
So it's
like Pele, just a Pele on the back.
It's
Quinn,
like Pele, but it's the white version. Quinn.
Okay. The Silver Ferns...
It's like the town
win
Ross,
the World Netball Champs, or the Football Ferns make it out of the group stage. What is more
What's
chance?
More chance?
Yeah.
I would say the Silver Ferns winning the Netball World Champs.
And that starts in a few days, ladies and gentlemen, too. And we'll be going to South Africa with regular abandonment to follow that. Bledisloe Cup test coming on Saturday. Does it feel like it's just a little bit under the radar at the moment? I'm sorry, an All Black test under the radar. Tim Horan, double World Cup winner for the Wallabies, 91-99, joins us to have a good look at this. Tim, is a match against against New Zealand, a test against the All Blacks, this Bledisloe Cup, is this still the ultimate prize outside of the World Cup for Australian rugby players?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And I think at the moment where the Wallabies sit, it's more about being competitive. I think that's what I'm looking for. I don't think the Wallabies will win, but most times against the All Blacks, you're saying I think the Wallabies by 1 or 2 or 3, but you obviously want to try and support the way they're going. But I think that would be tough for the Wallabies. They're getting a few players back from injury. I've had a couple of games now, but yeah, certainly the Bledisloe Cup's one we want to get back at some stage. But on the flip side, the All Black players, they don't want to be in the first team that's giving it back to the Wallabies in 20-odd years.
Look, one of the questions I had down to ask you, I might as well ask you now, is just in terms, there's been some talk about the Ashes, and of course because of the rain, down test at Old Trafford, do you change the format of this? Do you change the format of the Bledisloe Cup? Are you still happy with the idea, hey, you got to win it, that means you got to win 2 test matches?
Yeah, it's difficult, and these days of the amount of games that the players are playing, do you go to 3 test matches? I think probably something like probably every fourth year you have a 3 test match series, and in between that, probably just 1 test match a year. I think it's working well too. It's hard to win it back, but I think you probably need to get to a stage in the next couple of years. There's Lions coming up for the Wallabies, and a lot of matches coming up between now and the World Cup here in Australia, and maybe in between that you go back to 1 test match in Australia, 1 in New Zealand, and only 1 that year. So might give the Wallabies a bit better chance to win it in Australia.
I remember interviewing Richie McCaw. I've spoken about this before a number of years back, and asking him what he thought about it. And he said, "Look, put it up on every single Bledisloe test." He said, "We're the All Blacks. We come Johnson out. You want it, come and get it." I kind of like that idea. I'd have no problem as an All Black fan saying, "Put it up every time we play."
Yeah, that'd be that's probably not a bad. I haven't thought of that, but a lot of tradition in the game too, and that'd be a big change in tradition, but. Yeah, it certainly might give the Wallabies a chance. Of course, they've had a couple of a good win over in Perth a few years back, which was fantastic. And then, that one in Melbourne last year was pretty devastating for the Wallabies, but they should have won that test match. The refereeing decision at the end was disgraceful, and it still would have given, I think he just panicked, the referee at that stage. But great for the All Blacks I think it was Geordie Barrett who scored in the corner at the end. It was a sensational try, right on full time. So hopefully, if the Wallabies can get as close as they did last year, we'd be pretty happy where we sit at the moment after losing the first couple of test matches with Eddie Jones.
It's such a great perspective to hear you say that. Tim Horan is with us on the platform, because here in New Zealand, this side of the ditch, mate, we blame Bernard Foley. We don't blame the ref. We just blame him and say you should have kicked it out, mate. But look, this is what sport's about. It's about these moments and controversies. And Tim, I keep going back to that game, because it's not just about what happened with you guys. If we had blown a 20-point lead there and lost that match, I'm not sure Ian Foster would be in the job anymore. That's how important that one single incident at the end of that game was.
Yeah, maybe. And it's probably, Bernard Foley looks back at that, and I think, yes, Bernard Foley should have kicked it out, but I think just the referee, Matthew Raynell, all he had to do was just blow time off and go to talk to Bernard Foley and say, "God, I'm not putting the time back on until the ball's kicked in the touch, and when the All Blacks have the ball with 30 seconds to go to throw the ball in the line-out, that's when I'll blow the time back on." And the All Blacks might have still won the match because they were pretty devastating that night. But yeah, you're right. It might have saved a couple of careers, not just the coach, but maybe a couple of players, and the Wallabies, how they fought back. But yeah, as I say, if the Wallabies can get close to the All Blacks this weekend, we'd be pretty happy with where we've finished up in the last couple of matches.
Wow. So as far as you're concerned, it's just that, is it? It's more about whether or not you can actually run us close. Because we're sitting here confused about Eddie Jones going, okay, he's brought a lot of bluff, he's brought a lot of bluster. I love him. He's such a great person to deal with at press conferences and things. But ultimately, it comes down to results. And you wonder whether Dave Rennie would have kept his job, I suppose, if you had a one in Melbourne.
Yeah, Dave Rennie was doing a great job, and a lot of the players were quite disappointed when Dave Rennie was let go by Rugby Australia, and they obviously had their man Eddie Jones, and they wanted to back Eddie for the next 5 years, and but I thought that the way that Dave Rennie had got the team not far off where he wanted them. Yes, the results weren't there, but they weren't far off. Eddie Jones has got a bit of work to do, and doesn't have a lot of time between now and Rugby World Cup. He's only got 3 test matches, so the 2 against the All Blacks, and we play France about 2 weeks out from the World Cup in Paris. That's our last game. Of course, you guys were playing
South Africa
at Twickenham. So not long to go for Eddie to work out his team, but he is getting some players back. Taniela Tupou, Angus Bell, Rob Leota, Quade Cooper, Samu Creevy just back from 12 months out with injury. So that takes a bit of time. So I think we're on the right path, and I just don't think we'll win this weekend. And I've never really said that because you always want to back the Wallabies, but if we can get close and be competitive, if we're really competitive and lose by 5 or 10, I'm okay with that this time around.
Tim, when you go back to Super Rugby, and look, I don't look at the performance of all the 5 Australian teams because I'm not so sure that you've got enough talent to actually, produce, 5 really good teams at any time to challenge the very best teams in New Zealand. But you look at those knockout rounds especially, and how close teams were to the Chiefs and things like that. Does that give you a lot of confidence that, long-winded question, I'm sorry, but that you can actually get enough players together that if you get the right players, the right blend, that you can actually succeed at this year's World Cup?
Yeah, I think, Martin, this year's World Cup, so I think it's the next World Cup here in Australia. When we host that in 27, we've got to be able to make sure our pathways, our 20s, of course, our 20s had a good win against the All Blacks there a few weeks back. So you need to bring those players through. They're the players that will come through, and maybe there's 5 to 10 of those players that might feature in 4.5 years' time. So that's what we've got to try and retain our talent. We have a lot of talent in schools all around Australia that get picked up by AFL teams, get picked up basketball teams, and then a lot of rugby league teams that, you have a very good player who's in grade 10 or 11 at a high school in Australia playing rugby for the school, but he's already contracted to the Cowboys or the Broncos. So we need to try and get those players and contract as many as we can for rugby to keep them in the game.
How crucial is Eddie Jones to that? You've got Swali coming across. He's already said that there's several other players that he's contacted that are very keen. How crucial is that guy to this?
Yeah, pretty crucial to the vision of where he wants to take the Wallabies in the next 5 years, and hopefully he's there for 5 years. You don't want to be bundled out of the World Cup early and then you lose 3 Test matches in a row to the British and Irish Lions. That'll be tough. But hopefully, if Eddie's here for the longer term, for 5 years, and people can see a pathway to, a vision for this Wallaby team to be back where it should be, back where it was sort of, say, 15 years ago. I think, that people will follow Eddie.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
The Tight Five.
I'm a bit worried about these guys on the roof of the warehouses opposite us, where we work here around St. Luke's in Auckland, is the back end of a whole lot of places where they deliver stuff, the warehouse stationery, Noel Leemings and that. And the roof would be, how high would that be, Locke? You'd have to say, about 30 or 40 feet high, that roof? Would that be that high? 30 feet? It's iron. It's an iron roof. There's been a lot of rain in Auckland, and this is my point.
I would say
there are guys up there
8 to 10 metres.
Cleaning the guttering wearing gumboots.
Mate, it's sunny. It's sunny, though.
Well, it's still slippery as all hell, mate, because you've had rain up there.
Well, it's going to be slippery no matter what shoes you wear.
Well, would you not rope
gumboots
yourself
actually
on?
have some of the better traction?
Yeah, that tread works, doesn't it?
Well, this is the thing. No shoes have great tread in wet.
Wouldn't you rope yourself onto something? The guy is standing right on the edge with a little shovel, digging out the gutters with a bucket in his hand.
Well, it's their problem if they fall off. I don't know. That's their job. They do it all the time.
It's their problem if they. It's our problem if they fall off because we'd have to run over there, mate.
Okay. By the time you run over there,
he's dead.
Well, he's not dead, but someone else has helped him, probably.
Okay.
We're looking at this from afar. It's not as if he's right next to our office.
I don't want to see it. That's all I'm just saying. All that's got to happen is one of the guys says, "Hey, Jeff, what? Ah!" Right? That's right. It's go. I don't want to see it. I don't want to clean up. Let's talk some sport. I want to talk about the Mbappe deal. 332 million is just the very start of it. Carolyn Graham Hansen. That's one way to get selected, isn't it? For the next match for the Norwegian striker who just gave her own coach a spray for not selecting her. Haven't heard it yet at any games, Lachlan. So is that considered a failure by Dave Beach and the organisers of the Football Women's World Cup that they tried to get that off the ground? The All Blacks get named tomorrow. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the show, but we have one or two things to say. The RLPA NRL still no closer to solving this. And now they're saying that the Players Association are going to tell the players to boycott the Dally M's. Well, the players should turn around and tell the PA to get off, if that's the case. I really do. And your man, Jaylen Brown, the biggest contract in NBA.
Yeah, he's not my man. Stop it.
Well, let's start with that, because obviously that's going to raise some shackles and heckles, is it not? He's just signed the biggest contract ever in the NBA, Jaylen Brown. 52 million, 56 million, 60 million, 64, 69, added up over 5 years. It's almost half, or 250 or 300.
Well, what is it? 304 million US dollars.
304 million US dollars. You're not even that good, mate.
Hey.
Is he? Well, you tell me.
He is a good player.
Is he one of the best 10 players in the league?
Not 10, no.
Is he a franchise-changing player?
I don't think
These are yes or no answers. Is he going to win you a title?
He can. He can win you a title. As the best player on a title-winning team, I would say no. He could be the 2.
Would you personally, if he played for your Lakers, say this is the greatest signing we've made since LeBron?
Well, who's he alongside? Well, no.
You got Davis, you got LeBron.
And we brought in Jaylen Brown. I'll be doing somersaults. I'll be stoked.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, I'd love him on the team.
Okay.
He's not the centrepiece, I don't think.
Well, the other guy, Tatum, is a better player,
That's the thing. Jason Tatum's on the Celtics, and he's a better player. He's got a higher ceiling. He is their superstar. which is why it's odd that his running mate, the second best player on the team, has just gotten the biggest contract in NBA history.
Is this going to cause anything in the dressing room?
Because Jason Tatum's eligible for the Supermax next year. So,
okay, right.
But also,
Supermax isn't the prison in Colorado, ladies and gentlemen, where they put most of the worst.
This is what happens
criminals in the States.
when the CBA is renegotiated and then the cap goes up in the off season. This happened in the summer of 2016. When Kevin Durant went to the Warriors and the Warriors were able to make cap room to bring him in. But you had guys like Chandler Parsons and Evan Turner getting 4-year, $130 million contracts. This is what happens when the cap goes up. These contracts are
You can
massive.
be a mediocre player in the NBA these days and earn yourself 10 to 15 to 20 million bucks a year, can't you? Let's be honest about it. I mean, that's the
not
bare
20,
minimum, is it?
not 20.
But-
What depends who's signing you? Because there'll be teams with cap room who, someone like the Houston Rockets at the moment, who aren't chasing titles and looking to fill their books straight away, and instead develop the young talent who have money to throw around
Tell
for the
your
first
kids,
year or
ladies
two.
and gentlemen, start bouncing a basketball. Don't be biffing a rugby ball around. Start bouncing a basketball to pick a golf club up.
Well, how many New Zealanders have made it to the NBA? With all due respect.
Well, a couple.
But a couple, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, but I mean, I just think that there's probably more opportunity now than there ever has been, isn't there?
Well, no, there's still the same number of teams. There's still pretty much the same number of roster spots available as there were 20, 30 years ago.
Are the Football Ferns, yes or no, going to make it out of the group?
No.
Are the Football Ferns?
No.
Are the Football...
No. You don't need to repeat yourself.
If you were a player and the Rugby Players Association told you to boycott the Dally M's and you were nominated, would you tell them to go and get stuffed?
To piss off.
Absolutely.
Especially if I'm in the running for an award, piss off.
I just think that this is rank and rotten from the Players Association, who the first thing was the media boycott. That's ended. Do you know why it's ended? Because the players didn't want it. They don't want a media boycott. The players at the moment are having a great time. Look at the Warriors players. They don't want to be not talking to their fans via the media. I mean, this is the whole thing. This dispute that's been going on for 21 months now, and do remember a month ago I said they'd spend 1,000 hours in talks. That's 1,100 hours now they've spent in talks, and they're still apparently no closer to a conclusion. This is like getting two bozo backbenchers out of Parliament, one from Labour and one from National, and asking them to sit down and agree on anything. It's time that whoever is running the Players Association, this guy Clint Newton, whatever it is, step aside, son. You've done all you can. It's not working. You're not getting any progress. You can't tell your players to boycott the Dally M's. This is their night. It's not your night, mate. You're just a union agitator. If I was I'd tell you, so go get some.
Yeah, one of the stories that came out last night, backfired in the wake of claims that players are unsure what they're striking about.
That's exactly.
They have no idea what's going on.
They don't know, mate. And Ricky Stewart said that the moment that they called that strike, he said most of them don't have a clue. The Mbappe deal. How about this? 332 million US is what this Saudi football club has offered PSG for Mbappe. That's only the first year. Mbappe would get 100 million US of that. The second year, it's 668 million. So it's $1 billion US over 2 years. It's sick, isn't it? Jeez. I mean, so, you know, everyone has got their price. We talked about this with Live Golf. At some stage, do you hope that somebody stands up to this and says, look, you can offer me all the money in the world like Tiger Woods did. He will. I
don't think he'll go. He doesn't want to play in Saudi Arabia.
You've got to leave a legacy as a human being, don't you? Is somebody going to think about that?
You're jumping to conclusions. You're assuming that he's going. He's not going.
Well, if they offered you $1 billion, you'd go. If they offered me $1 billion, I'd go.
Because I've got no skill.
Morals,
I've got no talent. if I had the talent of Mbappe, I'd be like, no, stuff you. I can go play at Real Madrid and win a Champions League. That's what I'd be doing. But Lachlan Waugh, failed centre-back at Mount Albert Grammar School, who couldn't crack the first 11, could barely crack the second in 11. Look, no. If I get offered $1 billion to go play for a Saudi Arabia club, where's the part of the page for me to sign? I'm signing right away.
Are you worried at all, though? And I'd love to know what you think, audience-wise. 505 on the text. Are you worried at all, though, that? I mean, is there something deeper to this? To the Saudis? I mean, people say it's sport washing. I think it's gone beyond sport washing. At the moment, they're just effing with the whole of the sporting world, aren't they? Because they're just saying, look, who's the Crown Prince? I've got $500 billion in my pocket change account. And I'm just going to go around the world and I'm just going to stuff with every single sport that I feel like I can play with. And just start offering people ridiculous amounts of money to come and play in Saudi Arabia. I mean, say, for example, let's just let's float into the ether for a second here and just, hypothesize about this. Say, for example, that they came along and offered New Zealand Rugby $1 billion to take the All Blacks. What do you reckon would happen?
New Zealand Rugby would say no.
They'd say no.
I'd say no.
What say they offered New Zealand Rugby $1 billion and said to the CEO $100 million? You, personally.
Well, if they bought the All Blacks off New Zealand Rugby ceases to exist.
And what? And Mark Robinson's just going to, I mean, he's going to be sending you postcards from some desert island somewhere, mate. Does he care that much? Does anyone care that much?
No, come on. It's all well and fine to say that everyone has their price. Mark Robinson, as much as he's done a ridiculously terrible job as CEO of New Zealand Rugby, he is not that idiotic that he would sell the All Blacks. Come on. He wouldn't do that.
Well, didn't he sell a slice to Silver Lake?
No, but he wouldn't sell the whole team that Saudi Arabia now own
what
and
about,
run the All Blacks.
What about the
that wouldn't
players?
happen.
Okay, here we go. Maybe it's not his choice, mate, because the players were the ones who put the spanner in the wheel of the original Silver Lake deal, which was worth 3 or 4 times as much as the one that was signed. What say all of them? All of a sudden, those players who wanted to scupper the Silver Lake deal because they were protecting club rugby and they were looking after the root. Remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what say all of those guys who are just in love with...
If Saudi Arabia went to individual players...
And said...
Players would leave.
That would be the end of the All Blacks, right? That would be the absolute...
Well, it depends who it is. One would... It'd be like Live Golf. One would have to go, and then the rest would follow. So whether that's...
I fear where this is going to end
Bowden
up,
Barrett or Richie
really
Mo'unga, or one of our names who's heading off, they go, I'll go play in Saudi Arabia, and then all of a sudden Geordie and Will Jordan that Saudi Links club
Look,
looks
the T20
cool.
wealth has killed Test cricket as we know it. All the players are prepared to say, stuff their red ball game. I'm just going to go and chase the MLC and the T20 in South Africa.
No, it hasn't killed Test cricket. Is Test cricket dead?
Well, outside of the Ashes.
We just witnessed a... Well, that's the thing.
At the moment, the West Indies are playing India and Pakistan are playing Sri Lanka. You care about either of those? What are the results in those two games?
I don't care about Major League Cricket. I don't care about it. Okay, you're asking the wrong person. I don't care about cricket outside of the Black Caps.
That's all it is. I win, mate. I win. That's all it is. I win again. I won 5-0. I won 5-0.
This is a segment where you have some weird opinion or argument about something, and then you sit there and you say it, and then I debunk it, and then you go, no, I won.
The doyen, 50 years in the broadcasting business, Brendan Telfer, every single Wednesday, joining us, iOS, It's Only Sport on the platform. You're in a winter wonderland, is that right?
Oh, well, absolutely. Well, it's completely... I've never struck anything like it in my life in New Zealand. I mean, there we were driving north through Taihape. We thought it was a bit early to stop for a coffee, so I thought we'll have one in Waiouru or somewhere because there's a museum there that my wife would like to see. And we were about 10 minutes, I suppose, out of Taihape, 20 minutes. I was just looking on my phone, 20 minutes from Waiouru. We went round the corner, and suddenly the whole of our world was white. Everything was white. The road, the trees, the mountain, snow was pouring down, and I couldn't work out, Martin, whether I'd arrived at the New Zealand first annual conference or the X Party's election campaign.
Oh, go! See, there's always a good political jibe to be had there. Yeah. Let's move on to the British Open then, mate, because Ricky Ponting, I knew he loved his golf, but I didn't think he was capable of winning a major.
Who, Ricky Ponting?
Yeah.
Winning a major golf.
Well, Brendan, it's a joke, you fool. They kept yelling Ricky Ponting at the guy Harmon every time he took up at the tee at the British Open. Did you know that?
Yeah. Well, no, I haven't actually. I'm stuck in the middle of the North Island. I'm watching television or reading.
Okay, well, sorry. Okay, let me try that joke again. Brendan, Ricky Ponting won the British Open.
No, he didn't, because when I last saw Ricky Ponting play on golf, he hits the ball almost as far as Rory McIlroy, whereas poor old Brian Harmon, I think he'd be struggling to outdrive me. I mean, this is how far off the pace this guy should have been at the British Open. Major championships are set up for the big hitters and the long hitters. You know, they have these par threes that go for 250, 260 yards, and the course is usually closer to 8,000 yards and 7,000. And this guy, Brian Harmon, is ranked 142nd on the US PGA Tour in driving distance. But what he did better than anyone else on that course at Hoylake, the Royal Liverpool Golf Club, is he kept the ball in play. Yes, he was having to play second shots, sometimes 30 or 40 yards behind his playing partners, but far better to be 30 or 40 yards behind in the middle of the fairway than stuck into that brown, ugly, niggly sort of cabbage and rough where many were putting their long tee shots. So he outthought a lot of those guys, and he's always been a very good putter. And how's this for a statistic? He had 44 putts at Royal Liverpool last week, under 10 feet, and he made every single one of them from 44 out of 44 with his putting. So, you know the old saying, You drive for show, but you putt for dough. And little Brian Harman, 70 Ks, 38 years of age, and his experience, when he was leading at the halfway stage, only by 2 shots, I thought, this guy can call on 12 or 15 years on the US Tour. He's won a couple of tournaments. He was up there, I think, at the top of the leaderboard in the US Open a few years back. And the experience might just kick in. And it did. He went further and further away from these guys and won by 6 shots. The only guy that wins by 6 shots in major championships is a guy called Tiger Woods.
That's right. Yeah.
So, a remarkable victory by an unremarkable golfer.
Yeah, and, the fact that he had the 5-shot lead after 2, that squeezed down to a 2-shot lead during the third round, but he got it back to 5. He goes after 54 holes with a really handy lead, increases his lead. Is this great for golf, Brendan? I've always said that, to me, men's golf is the hardest, toughest competitive sport in the world because any one of 100 players can win every single weekend. I'll extend that now out to 140 or 150.
Well, although he was 142nd in driving distance, and he's on average about 35 to 40 yards behind Rory McIlroy when they tee off if they're in the same group. He is ranked, I think, about 28th in the world. So his putting is what, in his short game, is what kept him going. What I like about seeing these guys, these unlikely winners, is that it kind of is a very effective counter-argument to these people that say, the golf courses, are too long. We've got to start making these golf courses so long. They're taking all the short hitters out of the game. Well, it isn't. And they narrowed those fairways. Sometimes there was only about 10 or 15 yards where you had to land the ball or you were on the first cut of rough, which wasn't too bad. And so seeing a guy like Harman win on a tough, demanding course where so many major champions didn't even make the cut shows that you don't have to have, these huge, big, long courses to take small and, shorter golfers out of the mix. And I think everyone who doesn't hit the ball very far will be thinking, Brian Harman is my new champion.
JK's worldofgolf.co.nz. There is a absolutely readable blog on there every week now from Brendan Telfer, and thank you to JK's. I mean, it's a must. Let's talk about the Warriors. And your question to me was, are they guaranteed to make the top 8? No, not guaranteed. 28 points at the moment. The cutoff is 24 points, so there's 5 games left, or 6 games because the Warriors don't play this weekend, but they get that guaranteed 2 points. So 5 games left.
Yeah, they get 2 points.
Yeah. So just do the math. Brendan, they're going to have to win 2 out of the last 5, maybe 3 out of the last 5 to be absolutely sure. But the other thing, that comes into the equation, of course, these other teams play each other, so they're effectively 4-point games if you win. So I think the better question is, are they going to make the top 4 or the top 6? At the moment, they're sitting in 4th spot. Again, I think if they win 3 out of their last 5, it's probably good enough to retain a top 4 spot. I think that they'll finish top 6. And what my point is very long-winded, I'm sorry, is that they'll get a home semi-final. That's what be it in the first round. If they're in the top 4, they play away, but then if they lose, they get it. Or the first round, if they're 5th and 6th, they get a home semi. And that's going to be another massive earner out there at Mount Smart, mate, because at the moment, 20-something thousand a crowd. They're clocking $1 million a weekend, mate. Very good coin.
Well, they probably need it. The other thing here, which I quite like, is that how we've whinged and moaned, and you and I are in there with the rest of them over the years about the tough breaks that the Warriors get. And I think there's probably some merit in that argument. But I just like the fact that, I always argue in sport, and I've said it many times, what goes around comes around. You have bad luck one week, you have good luck next week. They had some good luck there last week. I see the coach of the other team was whinging and moaning about a couple of crucial decisions that went against his team, and then they got that drop goal. And I don't know whether Johnson's got such a great record overall with his attempted,
field goals,
golden point drop goals. And I didn't think he'd get that one. I thought he usually needs 2 or 3 before he gets one. So they had a bit of luck there last weekend, and that just shows what goes around comes around. There is no real bias. There's good luck and there's bad luck, and the Warriors probably, if they're honest, had a bit of luck, and they got away with a 1-point win, and that was priceless because they get those 2 important points. So, I'd like to see them get in the top 4, but I don't know.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, Download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.